You know, it was, yeah, pleasant, cute song. Sure, let's give it a shot. And I can go into detail about how I changed my feeling over the years, but let's continue.
By the way, just to interrupt for a second, yeah. I'm a kid, and I still remember going to the beach, and listening to Top 40 Radio, listening to WMCA. I was a good guy. And just, even as a kid, the line, I bought my ticket with my tears. That's all I'm going to spend. To this day, down to this day, it's a visceral experience. Just like with the Beatles, when you hear a great song come out of that car radio, and as a little kid, you go, oh, that's amazing.
Well, it turns out, once again, I'll divert for a second and keep it going. I have found out, and I only have found this out in recent years, at least for me to find out, Red Rubber Ball actually was and continues to be one of the premier feel-good anthems of the 60s. And I get all sorts of stories of what it meant to them now that I never got before. And so I am so blown away and honored to have been the voice of a song that affected thousands and thousands of people, and now at least I get to meet a few of them. You know,
nice.
And,
What a beautiful legacy that is.
it is. And, you know, it's surreal to me to have that.
Of course it should be. That, you know, your dreams of stardom to whatever level, or, you know, maybe we can make some money. First, let's make some money. Let's get some girls.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like, well, we sign a contract. Maybe we can be even bigger.
Yeah.
But you know, when you get like a chip in that game,
yeah.
you know, in the song that stands the test of time game, you know, just like what a joyous thing. You can't plan it. You can't, anybody who guarantees, it's like guaranteeing a stock. I guarantee you that, no, you have no idea.
No.
But when it happens, it's just joyous.
All right, now see, you're saying things that are making me divert again, but you said something. You said you can't guarantee something. Okay. In the mid-'80s, a small record company called Sundays got the license to release Cyrkle stuff. They do specialize in oldie stuff, and of course by '80s now this is oldie stuff. And they wanted a comment of what they released. So they sent me, a cassette, and I had my Walkman, and I had nothing to do one day. I'm in a plane, and I thought, all right, you know what? I'll listen to this. Now, when we broke up, that was been there, done that. I went in, I had a lovely commercial career, music, jingles, and as bandmate Tommy did also. And I didn't pay really any attention to it. I'm now listening with headphones. I'm kind of down like this in the plane, listening. And Red Rubber Ball now comes on. And literally, I hadn't heard it in years. And I was actually kind of blown away by the first second. When I realized, I guess maybe I sort of realized it, but not quite. I realized you hear, ba, 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 ba. When that comes in, with the guitar that complements it, ba, da, ba, da, ba, 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 da, ba, 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 ba. They go together, and in the first second, if you are aware of it, you know it's Red Rubber Ball. And it has its own sound, and you know it's a hit record. It has its own sound. And then you go through the opening instrumental, and I hear myself, and damn, I think I sound good.
You do.
I was like, oh, wow. I mean, and also, it had its own sound. And then when bandmate Tommy comes in, a couple of phrases later, there's that Cyrkle sound, that unique Cyrkle sound. And I realized, never having thought of it quite that way before, that nobody sounds like that. You know, there might be similar, but that exact sound, that was us. And we did it. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It was,
But now, bringing it back to these guys, the parallel of three friends who suddenly can sing and harmonize in such a unique sound that it's undeniable. I totally understand why Brian would go, hey, Hey, like, I got it. They have this beautiful sound. They each sing well, but the three of them have a unique sound, which is exactly what I got from the boys in Liverpool.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. So, all right. But now that we went there, you got to let me finish this up.
Of course.
All right. So now here.
Time.
Now here, this is now the recent Cyrkle revival, which I can talk about details if you want about that, but just forget about how it happened. Here we are now, we are doing a revival. And I am now meeting and greeting people, after the shows. You all know meet and greet, you sit at, you have a table, you sign autographs, you sell stuff, And I was blown away by stories that people came. And I'll just give you a few really simple, but it really made me just aware of something I would never, just what I said, how I was a part of thousands of people's lives that I'm now meeting for the first time. Well, some of the stories, the simplest ones are, this is my 45 that I bought in 1966. We played this to death. It was my favorite song. Could you sign it? And they still have it. And as you're all people that do that kind of stuff, so you understand that. Okay, great, happy, thank you for saving it, it's great, sign it, A gentleman came up to me, this one I couldn't really believe it, but okay, comes up to me, he didn't say anything other than he shakes my hand, looks at me very seriously, thank you. You're welcome, why are you thanking me? And he says, I just need you to know that Red Rubber Ball got me through my divorce. It was I was going through such a nasty divorce. And, well, you just cited it yourself there. The morning sun is shining like a red rubber ball. I think it's going to be all right. It got him through his divorce. But the most poignant one, and there are many, but the one, and this happens more than once, but the first time it happened, a gentleman comes up, he's an older guy, well, we're all older, but he's wearing a vet hat, and he says to me, I gotta tell you, we had a little battery-operated tape recorder in Nam, and Red Rubber Ball, I can't tell you how many battles that just got us through, and we teared up, and we hugged. And I do, when I tell it now, I get that,
How could you not?
Yeah.
You record it, you're young guys, you couldn't ever conceive of the weight of the joy. It was a pat on the back to a frightened 22-year-old a million miles from home.
Yeah. And I was there with that guy, and how many others. So it was really a mind-blowing experience to realize the significance of what I thought was a pleasant song, oh wow.
It goes, but it explains why it's been part of the legacy of music that we love that keeps going.
Yeah.
From Here Comes the Sun, which is the same mindset of Red Rubber Ball, Let It Be, all the message, the reason we're in this ballroom with these, it's not just the cool clothes or the fun rockers. The message always is, it's going to be okay. It'll be better. It's getting better all the time. May he rest in peace, Ian MacDonald, who started King Crimson, who was in Foreigner, who became a friend through the years. And I asked him his first Beatles song. He's 16 years old. He said, don't ask me why I'm in the Army. It's a long story you don't need to know. Yeah. But I'm in maneuvers, and I'm cold, and I'm lonely, and I'm frightened, and I'm in northern England, and I'm freezing, and I go into the rec room hoping there's a little soup left. And out of this tannoy speaker in the corner, this voice sings, if there's anything that you need, if there's anything I can do, just call my name, from me to you. And they became my only friend when this scared teenager was in the Army. And that's the power of music.
Exactly what music
you
does.
wouldn't know it at the time, but
yeah, sure.
Awesome.
So it was a thrill to do that. So now, if you'd like to move on to some.
So Brian's obviously thrilled. He signed an American band that has a great hit.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's go back to Brian now. So we had. Let me think. I want to make sure. I'm trying to do this in roughly chronological order. Okay. We now are in New York. We heard Red Rubber Ball. We got our Columbia record contract. We signed with Brian and Nat. And now, but we're still the Rondells from Lafayette College. And we are in the studio one day. And Brian, who was in New York at the time, whenever he was in New York, he always made sure to see us. Anyway, he comes into the studio, and he hands me a business card. Hands me the business card, and I look at the card, and, well, it says Brian Epstein on it. It's a regular business card. No, Don. Turn it over. Turn the card over, and I'm looking at a kind of a scribble. Now, Brian, I'm sorry, what am I reading? Oh, Don, this is your new name. And if you can't read it, well, it's the Cyrkle. And please notice the funny spelling. Cyrkle. Now, back when I was in Britain, I asked, I have to do this in big quotes, the boys, as the Beatles were lovingly referred to by their management team. They were always called the boys. I asked the boys, I said, we have a new American group, and we need a new name. Does anyone have any thoughts, any ideas? And it was John that actually came up with the Cyrkle with the funny spelling. And of course, you know how John thinks, has this wonderful mind, and he did the funny spelling, and so there you have it. So on one hand, oh my God, John Lennon gave us our name. On the sad side of it is, I, the worst nostalgia keeper of stuff, is that card was in the garbage the next day. I am so, whenever I tell that story, there's a little sinking feeling when I get to this part.
That was a beach house, you know. By the way, it's so... Billy J. Kramer, who's here this weekend, I don't know if you got to talk with him.
No, we haven't.
So, is Billy Ashton, and Brian signs Billy Ashton, and John and Paul, they know him, and John just says to Brian, and Billy's sitting there, Billy Kramer. Billy J. Kramer.
That's what John would do.
And he
sure.
says,
Yes,
Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas. And he said, I couldn't even answer why you want to change my name, but whatever. But he goes, why the Dakotas? People might think you're from America, and you're going to start here, so that more people will come. And what Billy said is, you didn't have to do what he said. But if you had a brain in your head at all, you just said, thank you, John.
Yeah.
And so he just had a knack for that.
Yeah.
He had, Badfinger, the stories. Badfinger.
What a mind John Lennon had.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So moving forward. So, okay, so now you weren't asked, it is funny, by the way, if you think about it. Brian didn't say, what do you think of the name The Cyrkle?
No. He just...
Here are three options.
He said it kind of like what I just did.
This is your new name.
This is your new name.
Okie dokie, it's my new name. And are you ready? Are you going to tour?
No, we're not touring yet. We're still recording. We're trying to, So what then happened is, so now we recorded Red Rubber Ball, and we're into 66 now, beginning of 66. Red Rubber Ball is now recorded, and in February of 66, I went into the Coast Guard Reserve. And it was a 6-month active duty stint that I had. And Marty was still in college. Tommy actually played bass for Simon and Garfunkel during that time. Yeah, he went out on the road with Simon and Garfunkel. Now, so the next thing that happens is, in terms of the career, what's going forward here, is so I am now in Coast Guard boot camp in Cape May, New Jersey, and I got a call from Nat. We could actually get some phone calls. They were fairly nice. And he said, hey, Don, if you think you can get a pass because we have an invitation to get on Hullabaloo, the show Hullabaloo, and I'm going to say the Coast Guard, it's not like I love the military, but the Coast Guard, they were so nice. I went up, I told them exactly what the situation was. They even took a picture. We had a publicity picture of my company commander. I'm handing him a guitar and he's handing me a rifle. I actually have a picture of that. I should post it. It's up on my wall.
Beautiful.
Anyway, they gave me a 3-day pass to do Hullabaloo. So, went up, we did Hullabaloo. Let's see, Paul Anka was the host. It was really cool. As a Coast Guard guy now, still just out of college, meeting, Paul Anka was the host, Leslie Gore was on the show, Peter and Gordon were on the show, and we actually, we did one of the, the Flower Power Cruise, right before COVID, we did the Flower Power Cruise with Peter on the cruise. And, of course, we did the same show together, but here was another thing that really, how sometimes you know things, but you don't really know them? Peter introduced us when we did our show on this cruise, and he made a really big point that I had to look and say, is that me? He said, ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to know that you know how famous Brian Epstein was, Beatle manager Brian Epstein. He had all these, besides the Beatles, he had many other groups. This is the only American group managed by Beatle manager Brian Epstein. And I pinched myself, because you know it, but you kind of forget. Anyway, it was nice reconnecting with Peter on that. Anyway, so now Red Rubber Ball gets released, and I was now out of boot camp and stationed in Staten Island, which also I begged the Coast Guard, please get me to New York area if you can. And they really did. They were really nice about it. And we played at the Officers Club on Governor's Island. It said, we pay back. And so I would hear regularly, and I'm communicating with Nat, hey, Red Rubber Ball sold 15,000 copies in Boston. Oh, it just sold 25,000 copies in Atlanta. I'm sort of getting these reports. And at the same time, I was doing pots and pans as a mess cook on this buoy tender, the Arbutus Coast Guard buoy tender, and I would be taking the Staten Island ferry into the city, and we would record all night because we had stuff going on. I still can't believe I did that. Okay, now let's get to Beatles now. So now this is a big one. The Coast Guard, my Coast Guard Reserve active duty was 6 months. And now we got an invitation to do the Beatles tour. And Nat was saying, gee, I think, will you be able to do it? Well, 6 months made me miss the Beatles tour. And okay, now, you ever hear, I think this is maybe a good analogy. Andy Warhol has this thing, 15 minutes of fame. Everybody has their 15 minutes of fame. I must have been right in the middle of that 15 minutes of fame where everything goes right. And what happened was the United States government, realizing that Don Dannemann was in his 15 minutes of fame and we got to help him out here, they changed the 6 months to 5 months. Out of nowhere that came. Yes, clap.
And you know why that happened? Because the Beatles were involved. Because the magic fairy dust called the Beatles' luck, that everything that's supposed to happen, if they touch it, it's supposed to happen that way.
Well, anyway, so there it was. So I was on the Beatles tour. Talk about little things. Well, this was a big one. Things that happened in your life that if that didn't happen, well, I wouldn't be sitting here today, that's for sure. So many things that that happen that make other things happen. And I was really lucky on a lot of them.
Their entire life was built on that.
Yeah.
If George doesn't get on the bus stop, the stop after Paul.
Right.
If Ivan Vaughn doesn't say, "Hey, come to the church picnic with me," they got a band. Every little thing you go, well, if that didn't happen, would this have happened? But it happened.
Yeah.
But the point is, whether you want to, the expression that I love is a Jewish expression, b'shet. Whether it's meant to be is what it is.
Yeah.
And may he rest in peace. You met Sid, right? For people who've been here so many times. I miss Sid so much. And
Sid Bernstein?
yeah.
And
Sure. Sid had told me there was one day, he doesn't know where it was. He was sitting with Paul, and he said, "Do you know what the word? You're married to a Jewish girl. Do you know what the word b'shet means?" He said, "No, I never heard that one." And he explained it to him, and Paul just sat quietly and nodded his head, and he said, "So, the Beatles were b'shet." And Sid said, "Exactly." And I thought, yes, but you can't do it. You can't say it any better than that. Suddenly, you can't go 66. You were on the last Beatles tour. There you are.
Yeah, and there we were. Okay, so all right, so now we are getting on the plane, and now, and Red Rubber Ball is a hit at this point. So we're not nobodies at this point. We're getting on the plane, but we're blown away by them. I mean, as far as we were concerned, we were just like you guys. I can't believe we're going to meet them. We're going to, oh my God. So this is the first plane ride from New York to Chicago, and I'm sitting now next to bandmate Tommy and Nat Weiss, the three. It's 3 and 3. It was a regular full-size Boeing 727 or something like that. The whole tour was on the one plane. The Beatles were behind a wall in the back. So we're not seeing them now. We're on the plane, but we're not seeing them, and we keep looking. They come. And at the same time, our position that we chose to take was that we're not going to be silly Beatles fans. We're going to be just regular folks. We're on a tour with them. We don't want to be silly Beatles fans. Anyway, finally, well into the flight, the door opens, and there's Paul. and we are trying to be very cool. So, you sort of look, but you don't look, Now, we're sitting towards the front, and you can see that he's the only one out. Nobody else came out. And people are introducing, shaking hands, and you can see he knows some, and he's saying hello, and he's meeting others, and he's saying, "Oh, nice to meet you." And you kind of get, just from the demeanor of what he is, that this is actually a pretty nice, up guy. You get, there's an upness to him. And he makes it to us, and now Nat Weiss knows him, from his whole Beatles that we're meeting for the first time. I'm sitting next to Tommy, So he introduces Paul McCartney, meet Don Dannemann of the Cyrkle, and, I'm in the chair, and, shake hands. Nice handshake, just very pleasant. Looks at me very pleasantly. "Oh, Paul, it's great to meet you." Blah, 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 a couple of silly ditties back and forth, like how it is when you meet somebody. Tom Dawes of the Cyrkle meet Paul McCartney. Same thing. And, we get about 2 sentences each, and that's it. And then Paul, very polite, "Okay, well, nice to meet you guys. Looking forward to hear you play." And back down the plane, disappears behind the door. Tommy and I agonized over every word.
Like we all would.
I mean, imagine meeting Paul McCartney and you actually have a chance to talk to him, and all you can say is, "Wow, we're a big Beatles fan," So that was that. All right, so now let me share with you the first concert. Now, we still hadn't met the group as a whole as of the first concert, but we're in Chicago, and we had met just a quick Paul meeting on the plane. All right, so the first thing that I will share is it was an indoor arena. I don't remember the name of the, but if you guys know the history, you probably know better than I do. But it was an indoor, I'm guessing a hockey arena because it was, long, a little bit narrow, and the stage is at the end. So it's our turn to go on, and we were really nervous, not about playing, but about our reception, because we're opening for the Beatles, so what could that be like? We were very pleased to hear cheers when they announced us. I mean, really, it was a wonderful reception. So Beatles fans are, I guess, cool, and we did have a hit, and, Turn Down Day was coming up. Oh, we got to finish up. I saw a thing. Well, okay, well, all right, I'll finish just this part, and then if we have a chance to more, I'll do later. But, okay, so we had a good reception. We played. We had a great cheer at the end, and I think the Ronettes maybe followed us, and then the Beatles came on. Whatever it was, I am now standing hockey arena. Okay, so I'm sort of a little bit up. Here's the stage right here, and when the Beatles came out, I'm now seeing them in person, except for Paul now for the first time. So my impression is, first, there was something majorly elegant about them when they came out. I don't know what their jackets were really like, but in that light, they seemed to be kind of a dark, velvety green, and very elegant. And they came out, and they got on stage, and they started playing. And now I'm standing here, and they're right here. They're probably, like you guys. That's where they are, and I'm here, just up that little bit. So 2 things that I'll just share with you. And that is, the first thing is, the crowd was so wild and intense. And I was standing next to a lady, I didn't know who she was, but she was like, at that point, an older woman. She was probably in her mid-30s, and I'm guessing press, maybe part of the press. And she was literally crying hysterically. Tears just rolling. The emotion was so intense as everything went on, and the crowd is crazy, and it's an indoor stadium, so the energy is contained inside. And the one other thing I'll share with you, I'm still getting a kick out of this, Wizard of Oz. There's a wizard back there, and he has an electric panel with buttons that give a shock to the seats. And every time he pushes a button, a little girl jumps out of her seat. And it was constant. Boom, 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 non-stop screaming, crazy, jumping out of seats. And that's my impression of that first Beatles concert.
So, Don, last question of this. As the tour rolls on, you get to Candlestick Park with him. Did you become, maybe not, if friends isn't the right word, did you become comrades with them?
Well, I would say cordial. We were cordial. We could, see each other and say hi and how you doing. And I could share a few little bit of meetings, but one quickie thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I said this before, but I know John every once in a while would look over and say, "Have you guys learned how to spell yet?" Just things like that.
Of course he did. Were they proud? Did they ever mention they liked the record?
Oh yeah. Well, we're supposed to end.
Yeah.
If you don't want me to end, I'll keep talking.
Well, I think we have to wrap up.
But I thought we have to wrap up.
Yeah, so we have to wrap up. Will you be outside to talk more if people want to meet you and greet you?
Well, I'm basically here to, whatever you guys want me to do, I'll do. Now, I think I'm supposed to go back and do some more autographs, and I'm happy to talk.
Talk and autographs, and hopefully I can steal him when we do our music circle, when we do the music forum, maybe at 5:30.
Yeah, I
think I'm supposed to be it's me and LJ and Billy, and we'll have some fun. Yeah. Don Dannemann, what a pleasure to be a fellow Brooklyn.
Thank you so much.
Don Dannemann.
It's fun to share this, I would say.
To me too.